C60 olive oil is a popular choice for people wanting to activate their full potential. Improved sleep, faster recovery and more energy are just a few of the amazing comments received from our customers who take a spoonful a day. Make C60 oil a part of your daily routine and see what it can do for you. Activate your potential today at thec60company.com.
Hello and welcome to this David Icke Dot Connector videocast. Well, I sit here on Brexit Day. And as people who've watched my videos over the years will know, I've been very undecided about whether Britain should leave the EU. And I've, all along been sitting on the fence. So I have mixed feelings today as Britain officially leaves the European Union. Yes! Yes! Whoa! So I'm staying calm about starting the process of dismantling at least some of the control of our lives by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. And as you see, I am still sitting on the fence. But I want to talk about something else today, which in many ways is similar to the European Union in this sense. We've been told a story about its history that is a pack of old crap. If people look at the history of the European Union, for instance, they'll know that this super-state, centralized bureaucratic dictatorship was planned from the start and has been brought about in steps. And something else has followed that same sequence. President Trump this week announced, well, he called it his deal of the century to sort out the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. It actually wasn't his at all. We'll come to that. But one of the things he said as he made the announcement is that when he's been doing business deals over the years, there has been an analogy used for how difficult the deal was, along the lines of this is more difficult than sorting out the Arab-Israeli conflict. In other words, the Arab-Israeli situation is incredibly complicated. Well, if you follow it on the news and in the reporting of it decade after decade, it can seem to be complex. But like all complexity, it can be broken down into a simple way of looking at it that gives clarity. So, as with the European Union, where there was a plan for an outcome all along, and therefore all these different treaties and Maastricht treaties and Lisbon treaties, it's so complex. Actually, it's very simple. There's the outcome, and we're going stepping stone, what I call the totalitarian tiptoe, towards that outcome. And when you look at the Israel-Palestinian situation from that perspective, the complexity dissolves into a very simple story, which goes like this. Israel was formed in 1948 by a political philosophy called Zionism. Note that Zionism is not a race, it's not a religion, it's a political philosophy. And it came out of Germany, it came out of Europe, East and West, and right in there, at its core, as it unfolded, was the House of Rothschild. The same House of Rothschild that funded Jewish settlers to move to Palestine before, during, and after World War II. And eventually, in 1948, the Zionist leaders, now located in Palestine, declared the State of Israel. The first country to accept that and recognize that was the United States. It was something, in terms of the United States connection, that would be constant right up to present day. What happened in 1948 is that not only was the State of Israel declared, but some 750,000 Palestinians fled their homeland in terror because of Zionist terror groups like Irgun and the Stern Gang and others. Those 750,000 people who fled to places like Jordan and Lebanon and Syria, and their subsequent families, have never been allowed to return. And most have spent the interim period in refugee camps. What followed 1948 was a series of wars and the imposition of Jewish-only settlements in Palestinian land occupied by Israel in the West Bank. And eventually, the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, declared that Israel was a Jewish state. And by any criteria, that made Israel an official apartheid state. So they said, it's anti-Semitic. Oh, please. It's simple fact. If England declared itself to be an English state, that's apartheid. Yes, it is. And it is when Israel does it and all. And here's the key to understanding this sequence. From the start, the plan has been for Zionists and Zionism to take control of the entire land of what was once called, in its entirety, Palestine. That's been the goal. That's the outcome. And what we've been seeing is the stepping stones, the totalitarian tiptoe, all these decades since 1948 towards that end. So we've had talks, We've had talks about talks. We've had talks about roadmaps, probably roadmaps about talks. On and on and on, getting nowhere. Simple reason. They weren't meant to get anywhere, because the goal all along has been for Zionism to control, own the entirety of what was once called Palestine. So we have the increasing number, or explosion almost, in recent years of more and more Jewish only settlements in the occupied West Bank. And they've just been taking it over, all against international law. And we've had other Palestinians in an open air prison camp called Gaza, overseen by the armed to its bloody teeth Israeli army, armed to its teeth not less, because of the staggering amount of money that the American government transfers to Israel every year, and all the state-of-the-art weaponry that's also been transferred to a country of just 8 million people. And then along came Trump, Donald Trump. Netanyahu called Trump this week the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. Well, I would put it another way, that Trump is owned by Israel. And thus, from the moment he came to power, he has been giving Israel everything it demanded, bar one thing that I'll come to. He's moved the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That's a massive symbolic and literal step to the goal of total control that Israel demands. He and his Christian Zionist Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, have accepted that it's okay for more and more Jewish settlements to be built on occupied Palestinian land in the West Bank. And Trump has accepted, recognized, that occupied land that is Syrian land, called the Golan Heights, is now part of Israel. So he's given Israel everything it's asked for, bar this one thing, and that is a direct attack on Iran. And the reason that's not happened quite yet is because Trump knows that it would be electoral suicide to do that, given that he was elected to a very large extent, because he said he would not get involved in these wars in the Middle East and messing with the internal politics of other countries. Of course, he had his fingers crossed at the time, but he's gone for Iran in every other way that he could, including ripping up the nuclear deal, which has kicked off all the things that have happened since. But let's not forget that if Trump gets a second term, he will not, after that, have to seek re-election, because he can't. So what will happen then? So we come to this deal that was announced this week, which is simply another step on the tiptoe to the total control of the former, what was once called Palestine. Palestinians still do call it that, of course. Another step on that road to total control. And when you have Benjamin Netanyahu He's just been indicted for corruption. I was so shocked I fell off my chair. When you have Benjamin Netanyahu saying at this announcement that this was a great deal for Israel, you know, by definition, that means it's an appalling deal for Palestinians. And what it does, it allows for Israel to annex a great chunk of the illegally occupied West Bank, known as the Jordan Valley. And it gives Palestinians a series of little enclaves of land connected by roads and by a tunnel. And Israel gets virtually all that it wants. I say virtually because there's a few more stepping stones to go yet, of which this, quote, deal is part. So also part of this deal is that Israel will completely own and control the capital, Jerusalem, which of course has religious significance, massive religious significance, not just for Jewish people, but for Palestinians. And they've even said in this deal that Palestine can have its own capital. And that capital will be in no more than a village, really, on the outskirts of Jerusalem, called Abu Dis. Palestinians, as part of this deal, will have to be disarmed, while surrounded, literally, when you look at this proposed map, by one of the most armed and developed militaries, state of the art, in the world. One that has shown itself year after year to be extremely trigger happy. A country also that has a nuclear arsenal that it won't admit to having, even though everyone knows they've got it, and America won't ask about it, even though it's threatening war with Iran to stop them getting a nuclear weapon that they don't even have. Now, and this is where the tiptoes come in, big time. The Israelis, already said by Netanyahu, plan to instigate the parts of this planned deal that suit them. In other words, taking over the Jordan Valley. They're going to do that immediately. But what they've said to the Palestinians is, we'll not build on land designated for you for 4 years. You've got 4 years to agree to this deal. Now, the Israelis know, Trump knows, the ultra-Zionist team around Trump that put this deal together knows that the Palestinians are not going to accept the deal. They know that. So the plan is that once this 4 years, maybe even before, but once this 4 years is over, when the Palestinians have not agreed to the deal they can't even begin to be expected to agree to, the Israeli government will say, okay, well, we've done our best, we've offered you this, well, you know, and the 4 years are up, so we're going to start building on that now. What was it Trump said this week? This is the Palestinians' last chance. And the last chance deal is a deal they can't possibly be expected to agree with, and therefore that last chance will go and the whole place taken over. It's such a obvious scam. And like I say, this has been planned all along. The stepping stones have all been heading to this point where Israel controls everything. Therefore, all these talks about talks have all been baloney. Just buying time so the process can reach a point where it's reached now, where basically there is no land left for a Palestinian state. When you look at the Palestinians, it's beyond tragic. You've got Israel big time against them. You've got the United States with all its military and influence against them. And in the audience, as Trump and Netanyahu made their announcement this week, you had representatives of Bahrain and Oman and the United Arab Emirates. The Saudi Arabian fake royal family are all in favor of this as well. And Saudi Arabia and those other Gulf states, they don't look to Palestinians as the people that decide how they respond to these things. They look to America. They look, yes, to Israel. And so the Palestinians have just been hung out to dry by everybody in this political web. And at the same time, we have seen the constant expansion of the definition of anti-Semitism to silence the rest of the global population from highlighting the tragic, disgusting plight of Palestinians. They're targeting the campuses of America. The Labour Party in Britain accepted this vastly expanded definition of anti-Semitism to silence criticism of Israel and what it's doing to the Palestinians. It's all a gigantic scam, and it's been planned all along. And I would just ask people, before they scream, that's anti-Semitism, which actually means anti-Arab, by the way, before they press enter and we get a reflex action response, maybe they could just ask themselves this question. Why does a country of 8 million people, why do the representatives, another question, of 0.2% of the global population have so much power? Some more questions. Why is Israel the biggest recipient of overseas aid by the United States, a country of 8 million people, a sliver of land in the Middle East? Why does Israel have such phenomenal support on Capitol Hill and in other parliaments around the world? These are questions that any journalist, any member of the population that cares in any way about freedom and justice should be asking. Why does little Israel have so much power and influence? Answer that question, and I have in my latest book, The Trigger, and the world will look a very different place.